too often like extreme freedom is interpreted to just like, well, fuck everything. I'm going to eat pizza 3 meals a day. That's not what we're talking about. You can greenlight so many more interesting things than just the model of rebellion that our culture has sold you, or the model of freedom that our culture has sold you, which is a bigger car, bigger boat, harder penis.
Yeah, I mean, finding out the truth that's the ultimate rebellion. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful conversation I just got to have with Peter Benedict Holmes. Pete is a friend, and well, you're God, you know this, but you know all of this. But for those that weren't here for the episode and aren't God, that are at home in your car listening to this through your favorite podcast app or YouTube, hit that subscribe button, by the way. This is a phenomenal conversation. One of my favorite conversations I've ever had, much less a podcast episode to record that you all get to join in on. I think you're really going to love the conversation with Pete, touching on things from the nuances of comedy to being just one of the most unique entertainers to talk about philosophy and spirituality in a way that I've never heard an entertainer talk about, and to do it so publicly. He does it on his hilarious podcast, You Made It Weird. It just, on top of being a writer, podcast producer, and creator, he's also starring in How We Roll on CBS, which is coming out soon. It is just a fascinating conversation with a fascinating mind. Again, hit that subscribe button. Don't subscribe to anything else. I'm not saying go out and subscribe to a bunch of stuff. But I am going to say, if you enjoy this conversation, then ever so lightly tap that subscribe button and make this the thing you subscribe to this week. So without further delay, let's get into it with the one and only Pete Holmes. This is Below the Line. Peter.
Hello.
Well, welcome to Below the Line. I'm so...
My full Christian name.
Dude, exactly.
Peter the Rock.
Benedict.
Ooh.
If I recall correctly.
Buddy. I just did an interview this morning, and you can tell when they're reading off of your like Wikipedia page or something.
Right.
And there's stuff that isn't true on the internet, obviously. And they start asking me about that, and I'm like, man. And the guy, I actually appreciate it. He was being really honest. He was like, according to your bio, and then it just said, and I was like, thanks for not pretending like you just knew it. He's like, according to what I'm reading right now, 10 minutes before I interview you. And I was like, all right, respect.
Dude, I learned your middle name was Benedict 10 minutes before this episode.
I mean, it would be weird if you learned it a week ago. Just for fun.
Intuited it a week ago, but then I confirmed it 10 minutes ago.
Actually, Benedict, I was deeply embarrassed that my middle name was Benedict.
It's a big name for a 7-year-old, 8-year-old.
Yeah, and Eggs Benedict. Like, remember when I was a kid, egg was sort of like gross. Like we thought the chickens were pooping the eggs.
Oh, really?
And it turns out they're vagina-ing the eggs, which is like still, I mean, if you're a child, that's still pretty gross.
It's cleaner, but yeah.
It's definitely cleaner. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that is pretty.
Let's not get into how clean we feel chicken vagina is.
Yeah, right.
But it is cleaner than chicken butthole. Mm-hmm. But it's still coming out of the chicken. And so like we had no distinction between poo-poo and egg. Yeah. So calling someone an egg was like gross. And we just kind of thought eggs were gross. And then so knowing that my middle name was Eggs Benedict, and also Benedict Arnold, who's a trader. Oh. You just learn that.
Wait, how'd you get that middle name then?
I believe it was my grandfather.
Oh, it was a family name.
Yeah, and he was an egg, actually.
Yeah,
and a trader. Yeah, he was a trader. He didn't scramble very well. He wouldn't do it.
What an ass.
I'm pretty sure. I'm embarrassed that I'm not like a good. This is actually. I'm not just skewing this towards something I think you'll think is interesting.
No,
I'm not like a big. I don't have a huge sense of family identity. I know that sounds terrible. You're supposed to keep that to yourself. I don't have a huge sense of like tribal, like I'm from Boston. Mm-hmm. My family is Irish and Lithuanian. We're Holmeses. We're East Coast. It just never. I'll give you a comparison. Like my dad loves the Red Sox, and even when I was 12, I was like, this is 30 Dominican people. Like I don't understand. Like why do you think they represent you? I mean, like being a child, I was like, why are you having 11 beers and crying that they lost? Right. Most likely in the 80s. They probably lost. Mm-hmm. They're not you. They don't give a fuck about, like,
Right.
I swear I had a sense of the show business of it. Whereas like these people came to the Boston Red Sox because the Boston Red Sox offered them the most money.
Right.
And if the New York Yankees, we saw it time and time again. The best players would then go to the Yankees because the Yankees had more money. So I was like, why? I guess I later kind of put it together that it's the theater. You suspend your disbelief. You say like, I guess you could say our town pays these people, our taxes pay these people, or whatever. Our commerce pays their salary. Some sort of legitimate tie between you and them. But I'm just like, these are just guns for hire. Like, don't fall in love with a stripper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't love you. And I'm trying to think of one of their, Nomar Garcia Parra doesn't give a fuck about my dad.
Right.
But my dad is yelling
Or
at
the
him.
city, probably. I mean, right when they retire, they probably do not
Buddy,
stay living there.
Aaron Rodgers did my podcast. He's always in LA. You know what I'm saying? That's not shots fired. I'm just saying, like, he's not hanging out in Green Bay in the dead of winter for fun.
Right.
These people go to French Polynesia.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, and
why
yet
wouldn't so would you?
And yet we do want to believe, especially in the ignorance of just knowing our town, we do want to believe when they say like the best fans in the league. And we say, yeah, we got our quirks, but we are the best fans.
And I do it too. I recorded one of my stand-up specials in Chicago, and I tried to keep it honest, but I was like, look, I love Chicago fans. That is true. Because there's something about the winters there that they're hard. And if you get them, it really matters. There's something, and there's no show business there. There's something kind of salt of the earth and real about Chicago. So I said something like that. So I do it too. But what is Chicago? You know what I mean? Like, I lived in Chicago for 3 years. So for 3 years, I would have cheered if someone was like, Chicago has the best fans. And then I left. So nothing is anything. So anything you choose to make something could be something. If you believe it, it becomes something. So my dad is right on that level. But on another level, I just remember being like, this is some bullshit. Bringing that back to my point, not bad bullshit, just bullshit. I don't know who Benedict is, and that's sort of embarrassing. But like, I always just sort of felt loose in my roots. And that was good. Because when I was in high school, I went on like...
Was it good? Did it feel good at like 12 when you felt like...
I didn't like living...
So-and-so had 4 generations and...
No, in the sense that I didn't feel at home in Boston. And that's not a bad thing. It turns out a lot of people from Boston feel that way. I know that now because I'm a comedian. And I talk about it when I'm in Boston and all these people are laughing and relating. Like, I can't fix a car. I can't drive on... I can't even think of what the scary highway is anymore. I really can't remember the name of it. That is embarrassing. But I can't drive like Bostonians. I can't fix a car. I don't know who the quarterback for the Patriots is. I don't know all of these things that you're kind of supposed to know. And I felt sort of locked out from identifying with them. Like
Did you want to? Did you feel a pull?
When I was young,
attempt?
I did.
Like,
When I was young, I did. And then what was helpful was when it came time to leave Boston, I was able to do it and didn't feel bad about it. You know, like The Fighter, the movie The Fighter, where Mark Wahlberg is like, I'm going to be a boxer. I'm going to go out and I'm going to punch people in the fucking face. And his family's like, you got to stay in fucking Everett, kid. You got to remember your fucking mother. I didn't have any of that. I was
and
like,
that's the thing. That is a big thing in Boston of like,
is.
What is the crab bucket? Don't let people
is the
crawl
crab
out.
Bucket. I don't know if Richard Rohr coined that, but he says that in Falling Upward, that families can be like buckets of crabs. And I love my parents. And one of the things I love my parents for is that they understood that I was my own person to a certain extent. So when as 2001, I graduated from college. I got married, which is, I mean, we can go into that. That's well-traveled land. And I moved to Chicago because that's where comedy and improv was. And that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't have that like, and I know a lot of people that did, that they were like, but this is where I'm from. It's Good Will Hunting. Yeah. It's like, why don't you come with me to California? Remember Minnie Driver's coming? He goes, one, because I work here. This is what Matt Damon says. He goes, one, because I work here. And two, because I live here. I live here. That's Boston to me. And that's a lot of places to me. You can't leave here because you live here. And there's a dark side to this because like in Mad Men, I really relate sometimes to Don Draper. And Don Draper goes to visit Betty's family and her dad yells at Don and goes, he has no people. I sort of feel like that sometimes. Like I don't have people. And sometimes that has like a drifter feel. Like I'm just kind of out for myself and like moving around and just kind of, You know what I mean?
I can relate for sure. Texas has immense pride, but as a Lebanese family that moved into this neighborhood, affluent neighborhood, and we're Catholic, and it was real waspy. It was. I'm very grateful it was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That I already had a little bit of a foothold outside.
But they're Lebanese first generation?
No, like third generation. So,
but still, that slipperiness is
in the South or in Texas. Yeah, it was a little bit of like, Beshara, what is that? What? And I'd be like, I mean, it's so stupid. And that's why I'm thankful that it was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think it would be much harder if it was first generation, second generation.
Well, my mom was first generation, and when I say slippery, I don't mean in their character. I mean my mom literally, the defining characteristic of my mom was that she was an immigrant. She immigrated, so she left where she was from when she was 7 years old. So that, I think that sort of troubadour kind of thing is in my blood, and it made, and I also had a lot of support from them, meaning like emotional. My mom really believed in me and thought I could do anything that I wanted. So I moved to Chicago, and that just made perfect sense. But I remember a lot of people in Boston specifically being like, I could never do that. One, because I work here, and two, because I live here. You know what I mean? And I'm not putting those people down. I'm just telling you, one of the like ABCs of me is that I just never was like, go Sox. I was never like, love that dirty water, Boston, you're my home. I'm like, nah. A lot of cities have little college areas. A lot of cities have rivers. A lot of cities have sports teams. What do you like, drinking and loyalty? Have you been to any other American city?
Right.
I'm not putting down Boston. I'm actually bigging up any place.
Yeah.
People from the Twin Cities, they have the same thing going on.
Texas, oh my gosh. It's yes. Many close best friends, and it is no judgment. I'm just thankful that I had some repulsion. You
have to have some repulsion. Yes. That's perfect.
And it wasn't I was not repulsed, but there was an ounce of repulsion.
Yes.
To where I was like, there's more to see.
But doesn't this tie into, and I don't want to jump to it, but this is, it's who am I?
Yeah.
And when you, even just from a young age, like an intuitive sense of I am not a Bostonian.
Yeah.
I am not
a Dallas Texan. I'm not a Texan.
I don't even feel entirely like a dude, like in the way that dudes were presented to me as an option. Like, this is dudes. Yeah. We love cooking outside. We love fucking real hard. I was like, what? Like, I'm over here going like, I gossip with my mom all day. Like, even that was, I was just like, no. And those no's, I could get emotional about it. That's the foundation of my ability to go, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my body. I'm not my surroundings. I'm not a comedian. I haven't always been a comedian. I'm not a Los Angelino. I've not always lived in Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? I'm not Pete.
You're not 42 years old.
I'm not 42 years old. I've not always been 42 years old. They called me Pete. Two other things called me Pete. That doesn't make me Pete. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are all just sort of like, and when you start to deconstruct them, what's on the other side of that is absolute, infinite, indivisible, peaceful perfection. And that's where happiness is. I find like, I see so many people being let down. Like, you go like, isn't it a cliche to be like, I gave this job everything. I just had dinner with somebody I hadn't seen in a long time, and they were clearly having kind of like a midlife crisis. I don't say that with any joy, and I'm not putting them down. But I was like, oh, you're telling me the line from the movie where you're like, I gave that job 30 years, and it turns out they don't give a fuck about me. And I'm like, yeah. Look, I'm not happy about this, and I don't think he's dumb. I think a lot of people get mixed up in the lie.
In the
theater. You matter to this company.
Yeah.
You like, it's like when show business people go like, I'm nothing without my fans. Like, fuck off, dude. You're driving around in your tinted out Land Rover. Like, eat a dick. Don't fucking condescend to me. It's really about you. Shut up, Paul McCartney. Right. That was a joke. Paul McCartney actually seems very beautiful. I just thought I'd throw in the name of a celebrity because specifics are funny.
No, and I'm here to rag on Paul.
Let's shit on him.
He's my least favorite Beatle. Not because of his
talent.
Ringo.
Yeah,
below Ringo. Not
you're sub Ringo, dude.
Yeah, dude. He's sub Ringo to me. Not because of his talent. but because of potential unreached. Let's be honest, Ringo, he met and exceeded his potential. Paul, the last 30 years, has not exceeded his potential.
Interesting.
And I think he got lazy, whereas his shows are low energy. Ringo's shows are actually like more high energy.
This is like The Great Pumpkin,
What's that?
The Charlie Brown cartoon, where Linus writes to the Great Pumpkin, who's a pumpkin-like Santa Claus figure. Yeah. And he goes, perhaps being he's like, I could ask Santa Claus, but perhaps being number 2, you'll try harder. It's brilliant. You don't want the guy that's on the top. You want the guy that's in the rear view of the guy that's on the top, and the guy that's trying to earn it, not resting on his laurels. So yeah,
that's right. I'm not even joking. That's a hot take on the 2 remaining Beatles. But now,
can I tell you something?
Yes, please.
There's a rabbinical, which is a great word if you want to sound smart. It just means from a rabbi.
Okay, awesome.
A rabbinical teaching, which is they ask a rabbi in this proverb. There's 2 men on 2 ladders, 2 separate ladders. One is on the 7th rung out of 10, and one is on the 3rd rung out of 10. Rabbi, which man is better in the eyes of God? And the rabbi said, the one that's still moving forward. So you're saying McCartney's on rung 7, and he's just like, this seems pretty good. I can't do Manchester.
That's right. No, that's
and Ringo's down there going like, oh, I'm going to take you to the octopus garden, baby. He's trying to move forward.
I mean, it's there is absolutely something to be said for. I remember hearing a phrase that the gods never so wanted to ruin a life than giving praise early.
If you want to slow me down and fuck me up, I'm not crazy about this, but I do think one of our jobs as humans is to kind of figure out even the malware that you're running.
Yeah.
Some of the malware that I'm running is if you let's say I'm trying to lose weight, like every once in a while I'll be like, fuck this, I've been eating too many pizzas, it's time to get serious. And then I'll do something pretty extreme. Like I'm kind of that way, which is an addict, to be honest. But I'll do like a broth cleanse or something, and I'll like, or a juice cleanse, and I'll lose all this weight. Don't tell me I look great, because it's fucking over.
Yeah.
If you go, Pete, you look great. Done.
Dude.
Pizza that night. So fuck you. Don't tell me I look great. You need to be like, I thought you were trying to lose weight. Then I'll be like, I'm going to bury you, bitch. That's so much. It's not healthy.
No,
but it's what's happening.
Well, it's, okay. This is why I am going to love this conversation, and I'm already, and this is sacrilegious, but I'm already excited for part 2, because the reason I'm excited about it, our conversations, and I'm going to pluralize it, is because, and I had a phenomenal conversation on your podcast. It was so much fun to get to talk to you, and we're going to touch on many of those same themes, because they're the only themes that matter. Yeah. And
if I could be so bold, they're the only ones that matter.
Truly. And
I'm that age. I watched the new Ghostbusters movie, and I hated it. And I was like, I'm so proud of you, Peter. You found something fucking better than the Ghostbusters motherfucking reboot. How old are you?
35.
We should fucking find something better. I'm 42. Right. It's about time that you found something better than, food I still struggle with, but at least I didn't like the new Matrix. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
At least I can go, this fucking sucks. I'd rather go inside.
Yeah.
I'd rather fill in the blank here, but something that gets me tied into the infinite unknown knowing.
Well, okay, so to jump into that, there's, and I think there's absolutely something to underscore there of the God so never wanted to ruin a life than to give praise early. So you give praise early on, and I think it really does reduce our capacity to reduce the voice in our head saying, keep going up the ladder. Yeah. And I think I see it I've seen it in my own life, building a company that within 2.5 years is valued at almost $500 million. Wow. And then the next 3 years being hell actually trying to get there. But the way it works is 3 people say it's valued at that. So you're just kind of like lauded as, oh, you must have built that. And then the rest of the time you're actually trying, especially the next several years, you're trying to reach that milestone that those 3 people.
But that was good, right?
Agreed. It was because it wasn't good. No, so they gave us it was too much praise early, basically 2 years into the journey.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's funny. A comedian, you never want to be brought up as like, this guy is a genius. He's my favorite comedian. You guys are going to be blown away. That's the worst intro you could have as a comedian. Really? Because you don't want to come out a genius. You want to come out just another person on the show. At the end, You want the guy to go, he's a fucking genius. Like that's when you want. You don't want the.
What is the best intro? Like what if you could write the line for someone?
Well, they're boring. It's really it's just what's the worst intro. You just don't want. Expectation is the enemy of like so much, and certainly comedy. I've said that many times. It's like if you I think I'm going to do very well, that's the worst. In fact, if I'm playing for a home crowd, like that show in Chicago, and couldn't have been warmer, you almost want to like do something. You edit it out of the special, but you want to do something up top that shows that something bad. I don't mean naughty.
Oh, wow.
What
do you do?
You want to like drive
Nosedive
the car off the road and into a ditch, because comedy is getting a car out of a ditch. It's not just sailing down the highway. There's nothing funny about sailing down the highway.
Interesting.
You want to go like, oh fuck, I'm in a ditch. Like you want to come out and be like, I can't believe this is how I'm starting talking to this guy. He's an asshole. I shouldn't have called him an asshole. Now we're in the space of you're adrenalized, you're vulnerable. And then they see the game. They see that it's a high wire act. Or sometimes I liken it to music. I got that from Brian Regan. I'm a musician, but I'm playing the audience. But if I go like, of course you're going to rock, like that's not right. You want to show them, I need you microsecond to microsecond. This is like a
When did you learn this?
like a organ transfer, and we'll lose it on the way in the elevator if you don't like keep it wet or whatever.
Where did you learn? Where in your
I just
comedy
blended
career?
a Brian Regan and a Seinfeld analogy together. I had heard those two from Seinfeld was the organ transplant. Brian Regan was crowds are like music.
And when did you learn even the tactic? Did you literally take that tactic in Chicago to kind of nosedive it a little bit?
You have to. And
and then you edit it out. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, or sometimes you leave it in. There's like my most recent special, which is called Dirty Clean, which is on HBO. I don't read reviews. I hate to be the guy that's like, I don't read reviews, but I don't read reviews. But someone annoyingly sent me a review, and so I'm reading their email, and then they're quoting the review, and I'm like, fuck, now I'm reading a review. But they were saying like at the beginning, Holmes seems for a moment as if he's forgotten how to do stand-up. And I'm like, see, this is why I don't read reviews. But I was like, you realize that I edit it, right? Like you want to say to this guy, you understand that I'm the one in the editing bay with the editor that could say, hey, you know that part where it seems like I forgot how to do stand-up? Take that out. But I didn't because the crowd is so juiced, got a standing ovation coming out. And that's a car on the highway. Yeah. And I want to take it into a ditch just a little bit. So you pause. One of the things I find fascinating about conversation and about life in general is that there's rhythms to it. So the crowd makes this wave, and you're supposed to pick it up here. That's your cue. Wonderful to be here. But if you do that, you're dancing for them. You're letting them set the tone. You're now. It's why tough guys don't dance, right? I was watching Jack Reacher, the Reacher show, and he's like, I don't dance. And I actually really like the show, but like tough guys never dance in movies. And Val said something really brilliant she does the Friday version of You Made It Weird.
Your wife,
which is my podcast, Val. And she was like, yeah, because a tough guy can't dance because then he has to be vulnerable to music. He has to let a sound decide how he moves. And that's vulnerable. So similarly, I'm going to be more of a Jack Reacher actually in this. They're saying, here's where we're tapering off. You start here. And I go, no, I don't dance. I go, I'm going to create the music. It's not in a bad way. It sounds really cocky.
No.
It's a way.
I'm actually kind of in awe because it's a fascinating articulation of a nuance like I heard a week ago that a bench presser saying, that bench pressing is all in your back. I was like, what? He's saying, I think it was a conversation I was just listening to, or a clip I was listening to, and he's saying, he's like a world champion. He's like, it's all in your back. It's not in your chest. Your chest and arms need to be prepared. They need to be ready. But the muscle you're building is all, and he used some technical term for the right area of the back. And I was just like, that's a pro's perspective that I would have never heard. Yeah. And it's,
I'm giving you the back version of stand-up.
Right.
But what we're dealing with in stand-up, because I think you're hearing me perfectly, is the control and exchange of energy and authority. It's interesting. The comedian is the most vulnerable thing in the world. In fact, a lot of clubs are designed to make it feel like the comedian is cornered. Like there's no exit for the comedian. He's cornered and he's lit. We can see him.
Can't see anything
and he's
else.
alone.
Yeah.
That's why it's like the number one fear. It's a nightmare situation. So what you're doing, it's a little bit like flying a plane. I understand that Cosby has done horrible things, but Cosby did say that as a comedian, you're like a pilot and you can't get on the PA and say, I'm going to try to land the plane. You say, I'm going to land the plane. So you, like a loving father or mother, you're playing these games with, I don't want to say authority just sounds so rough, but that's what I mean is like, you're telling me start here, but if I let you dictate the pace, then you in your like wolf brain know that you have me. And you can't have me. For us to both get, meaning the audience and me, for us to both get where we need to go, where we want to go, which is joyful laughter, like diseases in your body are being healed. You've totally forgot about you lost your job or you broke up with your girlfriend or whatever it is. It's completely gone. That magical place, I actually have to be kind of rough with you, and unpredictable and a little bit territorial pissing, just a little bit, but it's in love. It's not just to get me off. It's to get the whole audience where you want to go. I'll give you a great example. I think about this show all the time. And this is the best setup for a show. It was like this show in Chicago. It was at a bar and it was sponsored by I think it was sponsored by The Onion. So me and all these comedians got there and we were like, it's going to be the best show ever because it's The Onion and it's all these brilliant comedy writers. It wasn't the brilliant comedy writers. It was like the HR department for The Onion. It was like the distribution people for The Onion. And that means it was a corporate show. And corporate shows are terrible because everyone knows each other. Might as well be a bachelorette party. It's just like everyone knows each other. So if everybody knows each other and already has an identity coming in, they have a very hard time dropping that identity and becoming an audience. Right. Strangers are better. Strangers will merge and become this thing that will never exist again. They'll become a show. A bunch of people that share an office together, there's too many dynamics. Did you laugh at that joke that might have been racially insensitive, or not my act, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, last night we were did a double date, went to the Comedy Store, and when the guy said, anyone from Texas here? And I talk about like fake Texas pride, the theater of Texas pride. Yeah. I do love that I grew up there, but it is one of the great essays I ever read was an essay by this brilliant thinker, Paul Graham, that I mentioned on the podcast before. And he wrote, keep your identity small. And so just a nice little capstone to that previous topic of keep your identity small. Because once you start, I'm a Cowboys fan. Yeah. You start to build roots and you cannot move. And that's one of the greatest things about not having roots.
That's exactly
is that you can move.
I was at a comedy show with my girlfriend at the time, and she was from New York. And Jim Norton did some joke about 9/11. I was opening for Jim Norton. And she literally starts yelling. It was humiliating. Oh, no. You can't do that joke if you're not from New York. I was like, what are these rules? Yeah. That's a big identity. Right. It's big like identity. Walking around with big heavy bags everywhere. And so
the guy asks anyone from Texas, and I just scream like, woo! And it's because I'm not with coworkers. I'm not with anyone. I can just drop whatever. Right. There is no.
And you don't want everyone looking, going, James, and then they start talking
James
about
like this.
This is why corporate gigs pay so much, is because it's babysitting basically, and you just have to make fun of their boss or whatever. But the show was going horribly, and I've told the story many times, but it's an important moment in my life. It was just one after the other. Everyone was talking, of course. Why wouldn't they? There's an open bar. There's a bad comedy show happening, and everyone knows each other. Everybody's going up, and they're doing what I would have done probably too, which is big.
And what year was this? So were you already like well established?
No. Okay. We're like open micers. It was crazy that we were doing this show. And they brought me up, but I was like third, which was a gift. So I followed the host, who was very big and was really, swinging for the fences. First guy going real big, swinging for the fences.
Hold on, break that down for me. When you say it's great to be third and swinging for the fences as if it's a bad thing, what?
Well, because they're not listening. So imagine a room full of people that are just having a party, and then they're like, here's comedy. And he's like, what's up, everybody? You guys excited you're from The Onion? I love onions. Why when you cut an onion, it makes you cry? I cry when I cut up turnips because I love turnips so fucking much. No one's laughing. Sweating. Yeah. Louder. Next guy, sweating, louder. Third person, sweating, louder. Now I'm fourth, without the host. with the host. And I went small. And I said, and I got this from Bernie Mac. There's this great Bernie Mac set that I recommend anyone, even if you're not interested in comedy. You can just type into YouTube, Bernie Mac, I Ain't Scared of You Motherfuckers. And it's one of the best sets of comedy of all time. And it's similar to this Onion show, but in a much bigger way. He went up, everyone was eating shit. It was this horrible, maybe it was like the third taping of the day. It was hot in the theater. It might have been at the Apollo, but like a place where it was like understood that part of this is to boo and to heckle. And if you don't like it, it's okay to be like, next, like that's the dynamic of the show. Everyone's not only bombing, but being humiliated and like degraded by this audience. Bernie Mac goes out. He's wearing like this white suit with like M&Ms on it. It's like this really 90s sort of hip hop looking suit. And he goes out and the first thing he says is, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. And it gives me chills just remembering it. He tells one joke and then he tells the DJ to hit it and he plays music and he dances after the joke. Just a way of being like, fuck you. He goes, cut it. He goes, cut that shit. And they cut the music. Everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? I remember one of the jokes he goes, I'm blessed. And everyone goes nuts. And he goes, I take it out, the whole room get dark. And cuts the music back on, like undeniable. Just like, I fucking dare you. And he keeps going back to the refrain, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. And I'm not saying I did that. I'm saying what he taught me was if the crowd fucking sucks and they are scaring the shit out of everybody, you go up and you go small. And the first thing I said was, I'm not here to dance for you. I pretty much whispered it. I was like, I'm not here to dance for you. I don't know where I got the confidence. I'm like 2 years in, 3 years in, just like, yeah, this is my night. You're ruining my night. Like, what are you doing? Shut up. What are you doing? You're talking to your coworker? Shut up. And it got them going. And the show was great from that point on. And that's the greatest thrill of comedy is you don't want to do a great show. You want to do a bad show and you want to be the one that turns it. That's the greatest thrill of comedy.
When did you learn the aspect of like do a nosedive on purpose or go off the highway on purpose? And then how will you actually do it? Do you mind walking me through like the specifics of what you did or what you...
It doesn't matter. It could be something that I don't know when I learned it because it's a privileged thing that not everybody gets to learn. Meaning it's something that happens once your name is on the ticket and people want to come see you. And now there's expectation. And that not everybody does this. Some comedians just go out and they go for home run derbies right from the word go. Or like Mike Birbiglia, who's a dear friend of mine and a brilliant comedian.
Hilarious too.
He'll go out and he's not going to mess around. He has his perfect, he makes you feel safe by doing a small opening and he eases you into it.
He does, yeah.
That's another way to do it. I like to demonstrate a certain degree, and I can't always do it, but demonstrate a certain degree of fearlessness by failing on purpose, by trying something new. There's an adage in comedy, you shouldn't open with something new. I say you should open with something new because the failure snaps people into the moment and it reminds them of the stakes. You go like, we're here.
Yeah.
Something I tell them all the time, I go, we all wish that joke had done better, but here we are. Like, you'll never feel more alive. Like I say this all the time, I go, if this was on TV, you would turn it off, but we're stuck in this feeling. Now everybody's in their body. Everybody's not like, who is this madman, but like, this person's here. You're on a date and somebody just keeps doing their shit, their shtick. Well, I'm from Boston, but I don't really identify as a Boston. Like I say that.
Yeah.
What are you doing? A routine? If someone just goes like, oh man, I'm so nervous right now, or
right.
something.
Yeah.
Because what I'm looking for is what I didn't necessarily get as a child, which is the feeling of grownups that are actually there. So I want to demonstrate that I'm actually there. And the word, and I learned, you made me remember. I'm leaving Chicago. It's 2004. I was there 2001 to 2004, 4. And to leave, I was like, I'm going to do a big night and I'm going to record a CD. This means I've been doing stand-up for 3 years. This is a common phenomenon with stand-ups. In the first 3 years, you think you're pretty good. And
All 3 years, or is it
No,
year one?
maybe, but I
What
thought it
is
was
the
good the
arc?
whole time.
I really don't know anything about this world.
I thought it was good the whole time, but that's because my mother loved me a lot and my father taught me how to be confident. Like, that's why I thought I was good. That can actually be bad. It's a condition called laughter ears where you bomb, but you think you did well. I didn't have that. I was in reality, but I believed in myself. Mike Birbiglia actually says that. You have to be delusional. You have to bomb and be like, I think that went pretty good. But you can't be like, that was great. You just have to be like, I'm not the worst, but I'm getting better. I'm losing my train of thought slightly.
You're saying that, when I was asking about the first 3 years, you said by year 3,
oh,
they
yeah, you
record
think
a
you're good.
CD.
So I'm going to do a CD. Yeah. So I hung up flyers in the bathroom. It was me, Kumail Nanjiani, who's now a movie star.
And this is in Chicago, your third year.
And Kumail's third year too. And he was going to do it. And I got everybody that I love to do it. And my friend Robert Buscemi hosted. And it was just it was supposed to be a hot night. And it was at this open mic that was always great. And I just got there and the vibe was just, it wasn't right. The chatter in the room wasn't right.
What do you mean by that? I think for our listeners, I'm going to ask these pedantic questions because it's so fascinating.
Pedantic.
But when you say it not right, is that they're too loud?
You can tell, not to over glorify or romanticize what comedians do. But
no, I think comedians
you listen to crowds and you hear the language, and you hear the language before the show. There's too much chatter. You can hear too many loud, drunk voices. Like, that's bad. Yeah. You want them congealing. And you want them excited. You want, like, I know exactly what the sound is. And there's a too hot. It's like a boil. You know what I mean? That's too hot. I can't put pasta in that. It's boiling. It's a rolling boil. You want like a good boil. This water was hot, but it was still. And I was like, this isn't boiling. I was like, maybe it'll be boiling by the time I go up. And I invited my friends from high school who lived in the Midwest, my friends from Bennigan's where I worked. I never invited them to a show. Finally, I was like, please come to this show. So there's like my manager from Bennigan's. Is
this a cardinal sin to like pre-plan a great show?
I wouldn't do it again.
Okay.
I still would rather die than have someone come to a show. You want to come to a show? Just buy a ticket, James. Don't tell me.
Don't tell you.
Tell me afterwards.
And I was going to come in February, but then we had the Super Bowl.
Go ahead. Please come. It's a loving gesture. Just don't involve me. I don't want to go like, James is here?
Right.
They did a Seinfeld episode where his manager tells him, the pilot who flew your plane is in the audience. And Seinfeld can't shake that the pilot is in the audience. And nothing has been truer to the specific blend of fragility and neuroses that is in a comedian and the confidence. So you have the confidence to do it, but it's also like, I can't know the pilot is in the audience. And I have this constantly. People are like, can I get on the list? And I've had to like numb myself. But Val knows, if you want to come, don't tell Pete. He doesn't want to know you're there. I love you. I don't want to know you're there.
Dude, you actually said, it's actually making sense now because you said it in, this was maybe 5 weeks ago when I said, when's your next gig? I want to come. You said, and then I go, unless it's weird, I get, you're at work.
What did I say?
You go, no, we don't know each other well enough to where it's weird. And
that is true.
But I kind of laughed. I was like, wait, what do you mean by that? That's, if he
at a certain point.
That's so fascinating. Okay. So, but that makes sense.
But I like that they're there after.
Right.
But it's like, I learned this lesson in high school. Don't tell people you're going out for your license, your driver's license.
Yeah.
Tell them you got your license.
Right.
It's like it's a fear-based, or maybe like, I prefer it's a sensitive choice. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to know I'm going out for my license. I'd like to show you my license. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you anything about my life. I'll tell you about some weird sex shame like feeling or whatever. But I'll tell you about it a week after I've processed it. I just want a little time to get it on my terms, which is what comedy is. Mark Maron said that. He's like, comedy is usually by people that were laughed at, and we want to take back the control. We still want to be laughed at, but we control why you laugh at us. But it's still like, I don't say damaged in like a sad clown way. It comes from a beautiful vulnerability, and it comes from a beautiful alchemy. It's not like a fuck you now. Some people do that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm going like, look, we're all carrying burdens.
Yeah.
And mine is, I got laughed at. It's okay.
Right.
Don't feel bad for me. And I developed this talent to guard myself. That's fine. I'm grown now. Come on in. I'm grown now. Like, I forgive you. I forgive everybody.
Right.
Now let's enjoy it together. It's weird that something broke me. But on the other side of that is Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird that a spider bit me. But on the other side of that, I can climb walls.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Great. So let's enjoy it. So there's something really beautiful and redemptive about that.
And sorry, I got you off track of the third year. So you're recording
We're on the CD. Yeah. Okay. So everybody's there. You know, it's fine. I mean, you're doing a great job hosting. Edit that out.
Edit that out. Keep that in and then put that in again, sporadically.
Yes, every 30 seconds. Pete really seems to be. Does he want free Magic Mind?
But you will get free Magic Mind.
You already gave me free Magic Mind, and I was already completely. We need to talk about what makes Pete happy. That's one of my favorite.
Okay,
things.
we will do that. Right.
Like what revs Pete up.
I can't wait.
And Magic Mind's a big part of it. I'm not just saying that. Okay, so. Paint the picture. We're in the club. It's a bar called the Lion's Den. And everyone I know is there. And this is where I learned don't invite people. And everyone's not doing well. Kumail goes up. It's not going well because everybody's heard these jokes before. It's not like a club where there's 300 people who've never seen you before. We all fucking know each other. It would be like if I stood up and just started saying something I've already said on the podcast. Like if I just got up and was like, I don't like Paul McCartney. You might laugh because it's absurd, but you're not going to laugh because you're surprised. So I go up and I open with what my best joke was, which was I saw a sign on the highway. What? The only thing to open with is, this is weird. I know all of you. Like, this is fucking weird. Like, what? I'm going to tell my jokes to you? I work at Bennigan's. That's the only play. This guy sees me serve Monte Cristo sandwiches for $3.14 an hour. I'm supposed to entertain you? Like, that's the only play, is honesty. But I ignored what was happening and just said, I was on the highway. I saw a road sign that said, report roadside emergencies, dial 911. Then there was a second road sign that they installed. This is true. A second road sign underneath it that said 911 is a free call. And the joke went like this. I said, I love the idea that there were a lot of people driving around going like, holy shit, that guy's on fire. Long pause. But I don't want to use my minutes. This is 2001 when we had minutes. This is before unlimited plans. That was my big joke. I do it. It gets almost nothing. At this point, I did follow my instinct and sort of broke the script and like riffed on how you've heard it before. I expect this to be like a huge applause break, like people clapping and cheering. It's at this point that I realize like this isn't going to go how I want, but I'm not in a place of security. Like I can't just go like, well, you win some, you lose some. Like my ex-wife was there. She never came to see me because I didn't want her to come see me.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm suspicious of comedians that are like, bring all my friends. Like I think you're just a drunk. Like I don't think you're a comedian. I think you just love to do cocaine. I'm not sure. Sorry, I shouldn't say real comedians, but comedians that are real in the way that I'm a real comedian are that mix of vulnerable. I don't want to see faces. The pilots in the audience is too much. It's a very fickle dance.
I think that is I think you can glamorize or glorify this craft because it is a craft and it's not. I think enough people now in 2022 have seen just how hard it is to in a sustainably way entertain people as an individual. Enough of us that are certainly listening to this have been in public speaking scenarios and been freaked out. You're watching someone that is speaking in front of an audience, saying intelligent things, and that are also funny, and speaking to you and you alone, like observing something you've observed but never articulated.
Yeah.
And it's like watching, one of those is weird, two of those is extra weird, all three, it is like a bear on a tricycle juggling. It's all of them. And it is something where, at least for most, I imagine most comedians, it is all your creation. It's not 12 writers wrote these jokes.
Right.
And so I think I want you to feel feel free to glorify that mastery of a craft, because one, very few people master a craft, and two, it is you up there chopping it up on your own.
I'm all into that. The problem is, if you're feeling any hesitance, is because of podcasts like mine, comedians have sort of rightfully earned a reputation for taking themselves too seriously. And I actually think that's completely true. By letting everybody in on our process. And I'm guilty of this. If you listen to old episodes of my podcast, I call non-comedians civilians. Like, that is like, go fuck yourself. Like, that is insane. And I corrected that. My podcast is like, watch me grow. You know what I mean? Like, that's the name. That should be, it shouldn't be called You Made It Weird. It should be like, watch me grow.
Phenomenal podcast, by the way. And
I appreciate it.
And there's the right segue will come up where we talk about your podcast and how open you've been about the spiritual side.
Well, let's get to that. If you're like, it's both. On one hand, it is really interesting, and I'm very interested in it, like comedy and how people do it and what it takes. And on the other hand, we need to get over ourselves. We just do. I think what this does sort of lean us to the spiritual stuff. I think what is possible with not just stand-up, but literally anything, including this conversation, is a present person who's in charge of other people, who's given the mantle to like guide a group, and you are going to bring them into the present. You can't enjoy a joke if you're not living in between the syllables. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be in the apostrophe of the word can't, or you're going to miss it. You can't be thinking about your job. You can't be thinking about your relationship. You have to surrender not only to the moment, but to my authority. What a humbling thing to do. This is why hecklers are usually guys, because tough guys don't dance. And tough guys don't want another man, and certainly not a woman. This is why female comedians have a bigger struggle. They don't want someone manipulating their body. It's a vulnerable thing. I'm going to make you laugh. It's very close to tickling you, which is very close to sexual. It's like this, I'm moving energy. It is. I see, now I'm taking myself too seriously. But everything is sex. Surfing is sex. Food is sex. Talking is sex. Everything is sex in the sense, I'm just being funny by using the sexiest thing by saying it's sex. I could say everything is surfing, everything is energy, and everything is moving energy. And a lot of people, this is why comedy fans are beautiful. They will surrender. I bet they'd be good at psychedelics. They're okay at dropping themselves off. They're okay at, even if they have heavy identities, to put it down and go like, let's see what it's like in this guy. What a gorgeous thing. I don't give a shit about what city they're from, but I will sincerely tell you that my fans are gorgeous people. And I have a lot of correspondence and books and little gifts and stuff, cookies, and people go up and hug Val. I mean, these are gorgeous, open people. And the jump from that to spirit, I actually think it's weird that there aren't more people that are into both.
Well, that's what I wonder if they are, but there's an economic, political correctness aspect where they keep it to themselves. Because I think when a creator, and I've said this on the podcast so many times, but I think everybody,
you sound like me,
is, well, it's really, there are only a few themes in the truth.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone should create in some kind, because they are experiments with truth. I think maybe we've chatted about it before.
Gandhi.
It was Gandhi's biography.
It's also the name of Ram Dass's. There's a great collection on iTunes.
Really?
If people don't know where to start with Ram Dass, I always say Experiments in Truth on iTunes. It's
That's
the
perfect.
best introduction to him.
And so those experiments with truth are so, that is, when you create, whether it's gardening, whether it's cooking, whether it's, I was saying right before we started recording, whether it's comedy, whether it's startups, creating a company, you are going to have these moments where the universe just says no. And that plan that you had, that ego that you had, that confidence that you had, that trust that you had in X misplaced?
Well, that is the other side of the coin that we didn't touch on at all. Not to smell my own butt too much, but it's like,
Please do.
People
make for good YouTube. Yes. Yes.
and that's the clip.
That
That's
is
the key, the keyframe.
That's right.
Um,
Dude.
I just mean, of course, I love talking about the exchange of energy and the vulnerability of the audience and what it feels like to fail on purpose, to be in charge of the pace and the tone and stuff. But what we don't talk about a lot is there's an Orny Adams quote in the film Comedian where he says, "I didn't know suffering until I started doing comedy," and there's nothing like it if you want to get kicked in the face 1,000 times. Like, would you like to be kicked in the face 1,000 times? Because I'll give you the most clear example. Thursday night, okay, I'll give you a better example. Saturday night, you're at a club, you're headlining, 8 o'clock show, you murder. I don't know what happened, but every fan of yours came to the 8 o'clock show on Saturday. But guess what, dingus? I hope you enjoy that smooth, invincible mania, the high of invincibility after that show, because you're going to take it into the 10 o'clock show. And guess what? They thought it was someone else. They're drunk. They hate you. They're hot. Maybe it's a holiday. They've been drinking all day. And the jokes that you did an hour and a half prior are now eating death. I've had that happen, and every comedian has had that happen.
How do you manage your psychology between 8 and 10?
You just eat crow. Like the idea of a shit sandwich, the comedians sometimes call, "I ate a shit sandwich." That's what it is. You just have to keep eating. But
is there a better way to manage it? At 9:50, is there a thought that goes through your head that you've learned 15, 20 years in that you just didn't know 2 years in, 3 years in?
Yeah. You say, "I will be good." That's what you say. That's what I'd say now. I will be good. You know it won't be good. Let's say, like, you really know. It's just orcs out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you can sense that at 9:50 a little
Of
bit?
course. You watch the opening acts. They're eating shit. It's horrible.
I thought, in my ignorance, I would have thought, oh, well, I'm the headliner, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to save this shit.
You can tell. I travel with Laura Bites. She's incredible. If Laura is struggling, which she almost never does, but if she's struggling, I'm like, I am going to struggle. It's not, you'll get a 15 seconds of grace that maybe you're the guy. But I'm talking about and I love the Orlando Improv. I'm not shitting on it, but at the Orlando Improv, there's a very good chance they just came to a comedy show. There's a good chance. I'm not saying everybody, but 70% of the room is probably we just like comedy, like you. You just went to a comedy club last night. So if she's eating shit, there's a very good chance I'm going to eat shit. And the only technique that I've come up with is you say, "They will not make me sweat." I will not, and I sweat on my lower back when I'm bombing. I'm going to bomb, and I will be good. So when I come home from a set in the city, Val will, and this is probably 5 times out of 10, she'll go, "How was it?" And I'll go, "I was good." And that's what I mean when I'm like,
it's 5 times out of 10.
They were bad.
Yeah.
And maybe not even bad. They just weren't, we talk about being on the same frequency. They just didn't come up to my frequency. And sometimes, like today, just bright, feeling in my mind, feeling in my body, ready to go. I have a show tonight. It might not go great, but all I can control is, can I be great? Will I be great by my own standard?
When did you start to adopt that type of, in year 5, did you know that?
No. I think that's a over the 10-year mark, you start recognizing. And again, it's a spiritual thing. It's like,
God, so for the first,
I can only control me.
So for the first 10 years, is it like?
The first 10 years, people say things like, "There's always a way to get them. Don't blame the audience." Shut up. Blame the audience. They were the ones who sucked. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's always true.
I'm saying, I actually don't. I don't know enough to know. And I find it interesting because I think Warren Buffett says this all the time about company creation. And he says a good team and a good team versus a dog market, the market's going to win.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So sometimes it's just, in fact, look, I'm not saying the crowd always sucks, and I'm not saying it's always the crowd's fault, but often it's the crowd's fault. And when I say the crowd, I don't mean individuals. There were people in that crowd that came out ready to laugh, and they were great. But something happens. They become a crowd. And it's a wonder it doesn't happen more often. 300 strangers, and it's just going to alchemize just right. It's going to Voltron into something amazing. Of course, it's going to be off sometimes, and that's okay.
That little ding is the sound of cold, hard, digital, invisible cash going right into your pocket. And by pocket, I mean your digital Shopify account that might be on your phone in your pocket. At least that's the case for us in Magic Mind. Shopify allows you to go from first sale to full scale, and it has for us. Magic Mind has one full-time employee, and we've gotten to 5 million in annualized sales using Shopify. Me, William, amazing GM, and Shopify. It is the no-brainer for any e-commerce stack that you've ever thought of. If you're selling online and you're running into issues left and right, Shopify is a solution. If you're thinking of selling online, it is the dream scenario of being able to get your first sale, scale to millions in sales. And we haven't done this yet, but when we do move into physical retail, when we move into physical shops, start building our own, you can actually go from online with Shopify to offline with Shopify, and everything is in beautiful little dashboard on your phone. I love checking it. You could check it, as you're going to sleep. You just open it up and see your exact sales for the day. You even see tips on how to improve conversion rates, improve your store. Shopify is literally, when I say it's the dream, I mean it. It is the dream. And we've got a special hookup for listeners. So wait for that in a sec. You can reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. This is one of my favorite parts about Shopify is it has this ecosystem of thousands of third-party apps, developers and teams that are building awesome features for the Shopify ecosystem. So you're getting way more than just Shopify. You're getting thousands of applications built to refine the customer experience for all of your customers. We use probably 8 or 9 of these different apps that Shopify doesn't even build, but it's teams building for the Shopify ecosystem. And were we on a different platform, we just wouldn't have access to these thousands of third-party applications to make MagicMind.com so powerful. You gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting on conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/below-the-line, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. And this is a unique offer for Below the Line. You're going to get something special when you sign up with that /below-the-line. So make sure to enter that. It is not offered to everybody. So go to shopify.com/below-the-line, all lowercase. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/below-the-line, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/below-the-line. And grab your EpiPens because this episode is also brought to you by Chargebee. Imagine this. You're launching your subscription product and you need to invoice your first few customers. You integrate with a payment gateway, write some code to support recurring billing, and you start charging things up. Stuff seems to work until you need to create tax-compliant invoices or set up flexible trials and run pricing experiments. Yikes. Or integrate with more than one gateway. Yoinks. Billing needs grow as business needs grow. Every line of code you write for your billing system contributes to the spaghetti nightmare that will keep you away from your core product. Don't do that. Chargebee is here to help. We replace in-house billing systems and spreadsheets by giving teams the ability to set up subscription plans and trials, run pricing experiments at scale, analyze accurate subscription analytics, accept multiple payment methods, and much, much more right out of the box. Chargebee works with global payment gateways like Stripe, Braintree, PayPal, everybody, and integrates with essential tools like HubSpot, Baremetrics, Xero, QuickBooks, Salesforce, and much more. Chargebee, Chargebee, Chargebee. The journey to the first million is often the hardest. To help you get there faster, we're offering free access to Chargebee's Rise plan. This offer is valid until you hit your first $1 million in revenue. This is a meeting that goes back 2 weeks ago. Me and the CEO, I said, this isn't enough at 500K. This isn't enough at 750. This offer should be valid until customers hit their first $1 million in revenue. And that's how we came to this decision. So you don't have to worry about billing and subscription management in the marathon that is running your business. To avail the services. Love that. I'm going to start using that phrase as often as possible. To avail the services. Sign up for a Chargebee account with the link in our show notes for chargebee.com/partners. Sign up and enter your details with the coupon code BTL for below the line BTL. And then you complete your sign up within seconds. Super easy. Chargebee rocks.
Going back to what you just said, it's sort of serendipitous because I was just going about spirituality and comedy. I was in the shower, and this is sort of my Christian upbringing. I was like, sometimes I think my podcast might be more popular if I would shut the fuck up about Christ and Vedanta and self-realization and Ramana Maharshi and Mooji and Eckhart Tolle.
Alan Watts.
And Alan Watts and Byron Katie and Richard Rohr and Rob Bell. I'm not saying, like, let's not be defeatist and like, I'd be huge if Hollywood would just, you know what I mean? That is not what I'm saying. I am saying it's not for everyone, and that is 100% okay. But when I look at, this really sounds like I'm going like, I could be Joe Rogan. I'm just saying.
No, honestly, for a podcast that's dedicated to creator psychology, I really want to hear these types of inner dialogues that you have.
Here, what I think is really beautiful about podcasts is that you can do what you want to do. And what happens is, I don't watch our numbers. I don't watch our iTunes.
It's a phenomenal podcast, and it is one of the most popular podcasts out there.
I'm happy to hear that. I'll tell our advertisers, we need more green. I'm just kidding. What I mean is, I'm not that way about it. I'm just aware that I really don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I would rather have Richard Rohr on than Cardi B. Mm-hmm. I just picked Cardi B because she's huge. I'd rather have Rob Bell on or Byron Katie or Eckhart Tolle on than anybody. And I know my numbers go up when Conan does it. I know our numbers go up when Seth Rogen does it. And those are great. But this is a little bit of the dark night of the soul. I'll get emails.
What is that phrase?
St. John of the Cross. It's when you realize that true joy is inside you, and you start to wake up. There's a sadness to it. There's a dark night to it because you realize that you're never going to watch the new Matrix the same way.
Dude, I have
You're never going to watch internet porn and just be like, this is where it's at, man.
Right. No,
you're going to be like me and be like, fuck, why did I do that?
Right.
I'm not even guilty.
You start to see the end in the beginning. There's
I love what you taught me that. Yeah.
And the Dark Night, you said? What is it called?
Dark Night of the Soul.
Dark Night of the Soul. That is a beautiful turn phrase because I've searched for a phrase where there is and this is, I want this next part of this conversation to get as self-righteous as possible.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'll do it.
As Richard Rohr would say, it's a lonely place to be. But
oh my God, he's so right.
But there's and yet we sequester ourselves all the time. So maybe this will come out that way. But when I have when I've just inwardly turned away from almost anything, 95% of it is like just recognizing there's something greater. It's like when you just stop with Ninja Turtles figurines and you pick up, Sega Genesis. It's not that I'm not saying there's any holy quality to it, although that is the direction in which I try to point my soul and lens towards higher values. But you leave the figurines, but then you look back 3 years later and you're like, whoa, I miss those. And you try to even play with them. And yet you're like, there's a
just-
nostalgia, and yet you also recognize it's infinitesimal joy that they can provide you.
Well, this is Mad Men. In the season 1 finale of Mad Men, he talks about nostalgia, and he talks about the root of the word nostalgia is a wound, and it's the wound that you can't go back. And from the spiritual perspective, and it's funny that you said Ninja Turtles, because Ram Dass uses baseball cards or baseball dolls, I think he says. It's sort of a dated reference, but he's like, at some point you realize the baseball dolls don't do it for you anymore, or whatever it might be. He tells this really interesting story about going to Tanglewoods. I think it's in New England. It's a classical music thing. He's like, one year I just went and I got the perfect seat. It's like you put out a blanket.
He is a classical musician. Yeah, he's like
hardcore.
hardcore.
For sure. This is his stuff. And he gets a blanket. He has a bottle of wine. He's a foodie, and he has like perfect like bolognese like in a Tupperware, and everything's just perfect. And he listens to this music, and he's just blown away with how beautiful it is. Then he does all this spiritual growth, or whatever you want to call it. Of course, that's sort of misleading. In Vedanta, we start at the destination and just stay there. It's one of my favorite Rupert Spira things. He goes like, "There's nowhere to go. Just stay at the destination."
You're only the third guest that I've gotten to talk about Vedanta with.
Oh,
yeah.
We're gonna get into it right now. I have to. But anyway, he talks about years later, after doing some exploration, that he went back. He just happened to be driving by, happened to be the same composer. He gets the same seat, and he's sitting there, and he's like, fuck, this is what we're talking about. This is Ninja Turtles going like, it's not going to do it. Now it sounds righteous, self-righteous to be like, oh, you enjoyed The Matrix? Like, oh, I remember when I was an idiot. Like, that is not what I'm saying. There's something when you taste. So we'll get into Vedanta. Like, I told you off mic that Rupert Spira is my great teacher. I've never met him. He hasn't done the podcast. And
for anyone curious, we'll put a link in here for people to explore more. He's a Advaita Vedanta teacher. It really just calls it non-dualism, which that's what Advaita means. Yeah. Vedanta just means end of knowledge. So it's not some crazy exotic thing. Yeah. And he breaks it down so simply. But yeah, he's a great author and teacher on the subject.
And the book that I would recommend to start with is called Being Aware of Being Aware. It's life-changing. And I told you, again, it's not putting down Ninja Turtles. It's like when I read it, and not just the words, you read the words and there are these pauses. He writes it like almost like poetry. There's these breaks, and every break you just want to, not because you should and because this is how we study. It's because you want to. You want to close your eyes and consider, for example, that knowing that your experience is known. Mm-hmm. Are you aware? Yeah. Am I aware? Yeah. Are you aware? Yeah. You're aware. You know you're aware. And everything you see and hear is known. And then you're like, what is it that knows? And it's I know. I know. When I feel this with my eyes closed, it's just sensation. And that sensation appears within the field, we can say field, of knowing. And that field of knowing is who I am. He likens it to a screen. When I look at this, I see below the line. This is all Rupert Spira. Don't think because he's brilliant. It's not me. He says it's like a screen. He's like, life is happening on a screen. And the screen, you don't see the screen. When you watch a movie, you get caught up in the drama and you forget that there's a screen. In the same way, knowing or consciousness, but he prefers knowing or being itself, is always there. James, you can see, right? Mm-hmm. It's right here. This isn't like a far out concept. You are knowing this experience. You're hearing my voice and you're seeing. And it's a movie that's playing on the screen of awareness inside of itself, and it's watching itself. That's where it sort of gets a little groovier. Yeah. But we forget when we're watching a movie, we just go, oh my God, is Leo going to make it in the cold water? And you forget that the screen is. But recognizing your true nature is as simple as remembering that there's a screen. It's as close as the screen is to the movie. In fact, it is the only thing that's happening. The screen is where it's all happening. Your knowing is where it's all happening. The other thing, again, this is Rupert. He goes, can you right now, James, can you just sense into your naked body underneath your clothes? And I find this feeling to be exactly the same as recognizing your true nature is you just go, I know I'm wearing clothes, but like just feel your body and try and sense where your skin is. And you go like, there it is. I can feel my naked foot in my shoe, under the sock, under the shoe. There it is. Or reading, can you forget that there's white on the page. The white of the page is the knowing upon which and within which everything exists. So all of this fear of separation is just because he uses dreams a lot, and I'm a lucid dreamer, so it's really effective for me. He goes, imagine if you wanted to dream that you were on a Hawaiian beach. You're in Maui. You want to have that dream. That's the dream you have tonight. It's Maui, and it's perfect. It's blue sky, blue water, perfect, beautiful. You can't experience it unless you localize yourself as a person or a point. You could be a dog. You could be a floating disembodied consciousness, but you still have to localize it in the dream to have a point of reference from which you view the beach. You can't just be the beach. Be the beach. Right. Even if, as you're picturing it in your mind, maybe you're a bird's eye view, you're still a bird. You need to localize it. And that's what consciousness, my daughter's name is Leela. That is the Leela. That is the dance. We're going to seemingly fragment into you, into the mind. The mind is a limitation, kind of like a current is a limitation in water, or the activity of water. Or
electricity, right?
Or electricity. It's just, it's all water. Like nobody panic. It's all one thing. But the activity of that water is this vortex of activity, and that's your brain. And from the perspective of the brain then superimposes its limitations on everything it knows, because it is finite, it is dying. So consciousness sort of loses itself in that dance. But you're so close to that awakening, as close as, how close is below the line to the screen? How close are you to the field of knowing? I mean, I fucking love it. It's what's happening right now. If you're listening to this audio, where in you is the knowing? Because I'll tell you, it's not James, and it's not Pete, and it's not 42 years old, and it's not a guy. It's unborn, it's indivisible, it's unperturbable. It has no limit. Sorry, I'm going on a real tear, but
it is beautiful.
I want one more.
Yeah. Dude, this podcast is about you. So I want more than just one.
Well, this is Rupert. This is all Rupert. Rupert Spira, Spira. Check him out.
Well, you're the curator, and you're the only entertainer I know. And the etymology of the word entertain is to maintain presence.
No shit.
And so there is something shamanic with a great entertainer to bring that presence to an audience. But you're curating a lot of these thoughts. You're the only entertainer I know of. Maybe you know of others, but only one that I know of.
I certainly don't. We talk about our dicks a lot. I know a lot of guys that talk
comedians
about our
love
dicks.
that.
I have a great diarrhea joke. I really do.
Okay, we'll end on that. But right now we're building up towards that tension, and so I want you to go into this deep water as way more than just one more.
Okay, well, here's at least one more. The brilliant thing about Rupert as a teacher is he's all about your experience. He's like, don't listen to me. That's why there's the pauses. Like if you don't follow your breath, don't do a mantra, just explore or sink into or rest into. Self-resting is what he calls meditation. Not realization. That would be the goal, I guess. Goal. You're already there. You're the screen. How far is the screen from the image? It's there. You just have to kind of like rest into it. And you can see that this field of knowing, and I'm talking about yours, isn't that fucking dope? You and me, if we go deep enough, are the same. Insane. Beautiful. That's literally beauty. That's
like
literally
two fingers follow it deeply enough, and you realize they are in union.
The fingers,
right? Like you see separation from one perspective.
I
see union.
That's right. But you could take anybody. My father, Kim Jong-un. It doesn't matter.
No Red Sox fans. Sorry.
If you go deep enough, what we find is I, and what's behind the I is knowing. Not even the sense of knowing, just knowing. And this knowing knows itself. Rupert says, in the way that the sun's shining, we shine our awareness onto things. I look at this cup. I'm now looking, feeling, and focus on this cup. Sorry. I love that.
No, that's going to be the thumbnail. Yeah.
I forgot there was water in it. I look at my own embarrassment. That's a good example.
Yeah.
Now I'm focused on that feeling, right? Sure. But the sun focuses its rays of light on different things, but in the process, it self-illuminates. It doesn't have to make any effort to be self. So the knowing that knows the image of James also knows itself, and it does it naturally. He sort of demystifies this. So deep down, when we explore this knowing, we see that it has no border. There's nothing that it hits upon which on the other side of it, it is not, right? So he likens this to space. Right now, if you ask somebody to list the contents of this room, we would say microphones, we would say spilled water from a buffoon, we would say mugs, Magic Mind, a delicious, the first productivity drink, a TV that's giving us rays of Wi-Fi. No one would list the space. Very, very few people would say the space. This is the Tao Te Ching. We talk about the vase, but it's the empty space inside of the vase that makes
Gives its value, right?
Gives it its value. And it's the space inside of this room that gives it its roomness. It's mostly space. And it's not any different from the space. I know there are different qualities to it, molecules, atoms and stuff, oxygen, but it's not different from the space between the rings of Saturn. It's space. It's space. Like, really fucking get that in your craw. It's space. This is the space that's out there. Outer space, this space, it's just space. But we confuse it as this room because there are these walls. And in the same way, there's consciousness. Consciousness is like space. It's an expression of consciousness, and we confuse it because of the walls of James around it. But it's the same.
Right.
We could take these walls down and we'd go, the room is gone, but it's not gone. The space is still there. And every building in Los Angeles is filled with the same space. And we're filled with the same consciousness. And that's the opposite of loneliness. And that is the root of true morality. I come from a tradition.
How is it the root of true morality?
Look, I don't want to be too negative, but I grew up in the evangelical tradition, and what I did, I can't speak for other people. I'm saying what I did was I was nice. Jesus came and died so that I would be nice.
Right. Richard Rohr has a great line on that. And
That's
I
nice.
think and in general, I think the Christianity that we practice or learn from conventionally in 20th century America, now 21st century, is churchianity, as the great poet and sage Ramatirtha called it, churchianity.
Yes.
That we've lost the message of Christ.
Of course.
And we've taken up a message of a church.
And Richard says the word nice.
Yes,
Doesn't
Richard.
appear
Yeah,
once.
yes, nice. And that we have a poor definition in the West. We have I just listened to him say this maybe 2 weeks ago. And if you want to algorithmize your YouTube for these things, start YouTubing folks that you're mentioning. But Richard's Franciscan priest says we have a poor definition for love in the West.
Yeah.
We think it's being nice.
Exactly. So in my church, I would say something like, let's say there was a woman who is an absolute nightmare. She's the worst. She's a space invader. She's a close talker. She has halitosis. She's rude. She interrupts. She's grotesque. She's the worst. But I'm a Christian and we're at church. So I would say, Kathy, she's a lot, but great driver. Like, I just find something nice that I could say about her. How about what I would say now? Kathy sucks. I can't stand Pete does not like being around Kathy, if you want to get real woo-woo with it. What Pete is, the psychology of Pete, what Pete thinks is nice and good and appropriate, Kathy is not. Fine. But underneath that, I know and recognize that Kathy is, in Christian language, a divine child of God, or the same awareness that I am. That doesn't mean I have to hang out with Kathy or pretend to like her. What I'm saying is, love your neighbor as yourself. Again, Rupert says this, is a great moral teaching until you realize your neighbor is yourself. And when you realize there's only one thinging itself, you don't steal from yourself, and you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to eat yourself. You don't want to murder yourself. You don't want to pollute yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That is, and also, I can be real with you. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be a veneer. Right. I don't want to be like, hey, James, God love.
It's like the lack of love. If you feel like Kathy can't handle the truth, so I'm going to dance around it with niceness.
And it's not loving to me.
She probably needs to know
How is that loving to me? Like, this person really bothers me, and I'm going to, what is it? What is she, my alcoholic dad?
Right.
I have to pretend? Is that the truth? Is that setting me free? Or is it free to go like, it's okay, not everybody's for me? Look, it's a tricky ground. I'm all for kindness and I'm all for temperance and stuff. But
kindness isn't even niceness. True kindness, like kindness to your body is relinquishing things. Kindness to your body is pushing it through suffering. Is breaking through the suffering to the other side. That's kindness to yourself. Why would it be any different for another person?
Right. So these teachers like Ram Dass and Richard Rohr, they started to help me see that it's not just, it's cart before the horse. If church becomes a club that we belong to, and when I'm at church, I'm in church mode, and I wear khakis and a blue polo shirt, and I smile more, and I'm nice more, that's a lonely place to be. And of course you get in the car. It's a church joke that you're nice in church and you get in the car and you go, get the fuck out of my way. Of course you do. Because there needs to be balance. You were just full of shit and pretended for a while. And now your ego is going to boil up and it needs some realness, right?
Was that a lonely place for you growing up?
It was the loneliest place. And that's why stand-up rescued me from that, from like pretending that I'm not, take your choice, greedy, lustful, angry, petty, jealous, shallow, horny, lust, not just for like sex, but like I want it all for myself. Right. Like all of that is in me. We were talking off mic about my shadow and how it's Daniel Plainview. Now I had to make peace with that. But what I'm saying is, at church would do an impression of a converted person. The first thing that Jesus says in the Gospel of Mark, which is the oldest gospel, is metanoia, which is repent, which doesn't mean confess your sins. It means change. What are we to change? Your relationship to reality. You think you're in there and I'm in here and we're walking around. No wonder I'm stealing from you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I steal from you? Like that's a bad game. When you start to wake up to like, what else could it be but one thing thinging itself? What else could it be other than a play or a dance?
Right.
For its own sake. Let's not even get like, I do anthropomorphize and I do have a warmth and affection for God, meaning like there's one of the things that gives me so much meaning is the welcoming prayer. The first line of the welcoming prayer is welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it is for my healing, right? That doesn't mean everything is going to go Petey's way. That means if Petey dies today, that was for his healing. That experience of dying was what Petey needed.
Right.
Like fucking trippy.
No, and it's there are a few things that I want to mention to you that you taught me, and then you can take them wherever you want. One of them was going from the dual to non-dual, and what you might mean by that for the audience, and then and something else that you said. Well, we'll start there. What did you mean by that when you said I'm not quite there for the non-dual? So right now I'm okay with the dual.
When did I say that? Here?
No, you said this
on your podcast.
Yeah, on our.
You know what's funny?
In our conversation.
Is I know I said that on our podcast because since then I've just been like, all right. That's what it feels like, by the way.
What?
Is it doesn't feel like an intellectual mastery. It feels like a mournful surrender of the fun of duality, including a duality between you and Christ or God. It's.
Do you mind explaining what you mean when you say duality, and then also what you mean by the fun of duality? That's interesting.
It's fun to praise Jesus. It's fun, and I think you can do it in a non-dual way.
You get to take the responsibility off your shoulders in many ways in a dualistic.
Absolutely, yeah. You get to go like he did it. That was most of my churching. He did it. What a guy!
I'm on the side of the big battalions.
Exactly.
He's going to come and rescue.
And the spirit in the sky. He's going to set me up to the spirit of the sky. Like he's my buddy. I got a friend in Jesus. That's great. And that's part of my dark night of the soul is the bhakti, is the missing of the pure devotion. And I'm not. This is going to sound weird. I just do it to myself, not myself fuck this guy.
No, I hear you.
Fuck this. I mean, I love this guy, but also I don't mean this guy. I mean, what happened even between our last chat and this chat is you go like, look, it's all gotta go. It's all gotta go. And you know that because you know you're going to die. And in the same way, there's this spiritual death where you go, it's all gotta go. None of it gets through. I don't want to make this about drugs because it sort of breaks my heart. I watch these great spiritual documentaries and stuff, and it always just goes to ayahuasca. I have nothing against ayahuasca. I take psychedelics myself, but I don't want to misconstrue. We're not talking about drugs right now. That being said, we are talking about drugs. I did 5-MeO DMT, and which is not the visual DMT. It's more of like an inner experience DMT. And it's incredibly intense, but it's also incredibly gentle. And there's this feeling of none of it gets through. Meaning, it's like that eye of the needle. It's like nothing gets through. Nothing gets through. And on the other side, this is literally the good news. There's nothing missing. It's like a death experience. And nothing that I called Pete got to go. I forget who said it. He goes, I believe in heaven. I just believe there won't be much of you there.
Yeah, that's a phrase. Enlightenment is the ultimate ego letdown.
The ego's final disappointment. Trunk
Right.
Rinpoche.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, which is exactly right. Pete doesn't get to go. And as Ramdas would say, because Pete couldn't handle sitting at the right hand of God. Again, these are dualistic images, but I'm just saying like Pete would have a schizophrenic meltdown if he was in that place. Guess what? I went there. Pete did not go there. I went there.
With the 5-MeO DMT.
But the big I.
Yeah.
The real I.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, I love talking about it because it's literally, I for the first month after I did it, I was like, this sounds so self-important, but I was like, I can't talk about it because it was too sacred. And I literally was like, I'm not going to talk about it. You can listen, there's weeks of episodes of my podcast where I had done it and I was not talking about it. And then this is what humanity is. It fades in certain ways and you get conceptualize it more. And then there's something you can talk about. It's not it, but there's something you can talk about. And it was a very sacred setting. I don't mean ayahuasca white robes. I mean, it was just like administered by someone who's trained I think we're going to see more and more of this sort of stuff. Like there was someone who had done it hundreds of times, administered it. He had only done it once, but he was trained to administer it. Set and setting, beautiful outdoor veranda, music, perfect music playing, trusted brotherhood, and I smoked it in the morning. It was a synthetic. Some people smoke toad venom. I've been told that there's some things in the toad venom, understandably, that can make it a rockier trip. So we did a synthetic, and the first hit, my ego was still there, and I just felt. By the way, for real, I'm not saying this for legal reasons or anything. I do not recommend that people do this. Like, I'm saying this as a human, not as a person trying to cover his ass. This was step 500 on a journey of 500 steps. Someone at a party says, I have 5-MeO DMT. Run away. That is exactly what I'm saying. You do not do that.
And they're the opposite of a responsible individual that would be a good caretaker.
Horrible idea.
Yeah.
I fasted. I didn't have salt or spicy food. I didn't have sex or masturbate, not for moral reasons, to keep my energy in. I was focused on my intention day in and day out. I was dreaming about it. I read the Universal Christ from cover to cover. I was meditating. I was doing everything I could to just be as clear as a bell for this. And my mind was bent on it.
How long ago was this?
That's a good question. 6 months ago, maybe. That's a guess. I'm bad with time. But so this is not an endorsement.
Does part of you wish it was longer ago? Is part of you like, I don't say 6
honestly,
months.
I don't.
Because when I did ayahuasca, I was like, can't wait till it's like 2 years from now.
Oh, it was 2 years ago. So you have more distance. Right?
Yeah. So it sounds more profound than like 3 weeks ago.
You're absolutely right. When was this? Last Monday.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Probably. Okay. No, but keep going.
I
think you're right on that 500 steps. Just to give a little extra color there for folks. You're the only entertainer I know that has talked about the spiritual stuff with this disciplined, focused approach, up there with Duncan Trussell. You too.
Hey, man!
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Duncan, introed us. Yeah, through text.
That's right.
And
I texted him to get your info, yeah.
And it's so rare to hear this from someone in your business, and I don't even want to waste time trying to unwind why, because I feel like maybe you see people have these realizations and these movements within them, but they don't talk about them. But yes, this was years and years of you going down this very deep spiritual path.
If you just jump to
this is not chapter 1.
Right. Don't just go run the marathon. Like start with a walk around your house like that.
Yeah. Start with, it sounds like the resources that you've been mentioning are great.
I mean, read Rupert. Start with Ram Dass. Ram Dass was the one who and Duncan introduced me to Ram Dass, and Experiments in Truth is the one to start with. And now when I listen to Ram Dass, I go, oh my God, he's Vedantic. He's saying, I just couldn't hear it.
Right.
That's one of the great experiences of spirituality is you're like, you listen to it. You don't say, I don't get it. You go, I do get it.
Yeah.
And I love it. And then you listen to it 5, 6, 7 years later and you go, I didn't hear this at all.
Dude, Alan Watts is the book. Great name for a book to say, this is my message. Right?
He's saying it right to your face and you don't even hear it.
And he mentions Vedanta so briefly.
Yeah.
In page 11. And I read it, had no idea, and I didn't even realize one of his primary influences was Vedanta, just because, Zen must be the thing. So yeah, it can sit right in plain
hidden
view.
In plain sight.
Yeah. But okay, so
that's also the prodigal son, which I think I said this when you did my podcast. This is the closer. This is Jesus's closer.
That was my next question. Hold that thought, because that's my next question for you after the.
Okay, I'll do 5 days ago, and then we can close with prodigal son. I have no idea what time it is, but so I smoked it, and the reason I love sharing this is because it is the good news. Meaning it was a death experience. Like the whole thing is let go, let go, let go. The practitioner, the last thing he said to me as he laid me down was let go, which is the perfect thing to say. I joked, I was like, please come to my deathbed. Like that's what I want someone to say is like, it's okay. It's like, go ahead and let go. Like you can't go anywhere. To Ramana Maharshi,
right.
where could I go?
Right.
Where could you go?
Right.
Where could you go? Anyway, I was telling you that after the first hit, I felt fantastic. And that is not everyone's experience. You really got what you intended. Yeah. And my intention was the divine in me wants to hang out with itself. And I'm pleased with that intention.
Yeah.
I was like,
a hell of a one. I
just want to be with me, with my true self. So the first hit, it felt a little bit like a lot of weed, maybe, in that there was a euphoria and there was kind of like a wow, 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 like a throbbing, kind of like, oh, well, this fucking feels amazing. And I'm lying down and I'm like, I think this is it. But that voice was still there. The voice going, I think this is it, was there. So I knew it couldn't be what everyone was talking about, or this was the biggest disappointment of my life. Because I could still hear my thoughts. I could still hear Pete going, this is it, baby. Whoa, this kind of feels like weed, like making comparisons. It's not very visual. That's true. What Terrence McKenna said is it's not visual, and that's check it out. Like that's what I was doing. But, and I think this is interesting. I didn't want to tell. I didn't want another hit because I knew that was going to be the death blow. And that's scary. But I did. I didn't, and I did. The voice didn't. Pete didn't, but I did. And so he said, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you want to? He goes, was there any point where you ceased to exist? And I said, no. And then he sat me up and we did another 7-second hit or something.
Of a pipe of
a vape pen.
Yeah.
And then he laid me back down, and it's weird because I know what I'm remembering isn't it, but I do remember it, is that there was the feeling of like a jet, like the rockets on a spaceship, but there was like here we go, right?
Really?
And I saw to my right, this is the only visual thing I saw really, was like a swirling with numbers and mushroom. You ever take mushrooms, you see eyeballs everywhere, like mushroomy kind of eyes. And I was like, okay, with math, like I saw numbers. And I was like, and then I went, this is it. This is what you've been afraid of for like, I had been planning to do it for months. And I had been nervous, rightfully, for months to die. It's not like a chill afternoon to die. Yeah. So and one of my last conscious thoughts was, this is what you've been so afraid of. It's about to happen. And then my mantra was, I trust myself. I trust myself. I trust myself. Meaning, if it's true, which I believe it is, that this is all one knowing, you can trust that knowing. No matter what's happening, you can trust it because it's you. So like, I trust myself. And I went, and I was gone, and it felt like going through a birth canal. This is all metaphorical, but it felt like I went up behind myself. I was lying down and through. Like there was a real, and buddy, this is the best thing I could say. It was incredibly intense and incredibly gentle. It was like I was a blob of paint on a canvas, like wet paint, and something just lovingly smeared me. Like not, I've heard people talk about NNDMT and they're like, it shoots you out of a cannon and you burst into glitter, and it sounds like jarring, to be honest. It sounds frightening. This was just something going like that. And what I realized is, and I know this isn't going to make sense to our rational minds because it doesn't make sense to my rational mind all the time. But here it is that when you die, it's like going to the scream. You're already there. You're already home. And when you go, everything that dies was never real. So you're not going up into heaven or, down into hell. You're going into the real. You're going into what you've always been, that field of knowing that knows your perceptions right now, that feels this table and hears my voice. That field of knowing is it. And when you die, James Beshara goes away, your story goes away, Texas goes away, and it's a relief. It will bring tears to your eyes that you go, just give me what's real, what's actually real. And the feeling of that, if you're not resisting it, you know what I'm saying? Like what I'm saying is hell, I believe, I'm using this metaphorically, is no, right? It's the same experience, but it's no. I am a big shot. I am a millionaire. I have a hot wife, all that stuff. If you're holding on to it, same experience is hell. If you're going, I trust, I give, welcome.
The root of the word confidence is complete trust. The root of the word faith is complete trust.
Yeah.
And yet you can find individuals that will identify the hell with confidence, but something like faith seems so foreign to them.
The final image, so there was that sucking out is wrong. That whole like, and I die and I floated above my bed. Those things might be valid, those stories, but I'm just saying, like, you're going in. You're going closer to yourself. You are less encumbered.
Home is a return, not a journey.
You didn't go anywhere. I'm telling you that the feeling, the sensation was that of jet engines and being sucked up and through myself and through a birth canal. And on the other side of it was this is not even, I didn't see anything, but it felt like I went from the place of little lights to the place of big bouncing lights. That is not true, but I said that to some of my brothers that also did it. And they were like, yes, I went to the place of the big bouncing lights. You will not see any big bouncing lights, and yet it will be true. Similar to the metaphors in the Bible, I would say. Like a lot of those stories might not be literally true, but they're absolutely 100% completely true, right? So the feeling, now I have lobsters all over my house. Not living lobsters, just I have lobsters. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with lobsters, but there are several lobsters in my house, little art lobsters.
This is the third visual, or this is
This
real?
is the third visual. In real life,
Okay.
I have a lobster hanging on my back door that I see on my way to my office. And on the TV show I just wrapped, it's called How We Roll. It's on CBS. Please watch.
Yeah, it comes out in March, right?
It comes out in March. I love the experience so much. Please watch. If you just want to like give me my dream
Dude,
job
I
loved it so much.
My wife and I, Cheney and I, are such big fans of Crashing.
Thanks,
incredible fans of your podcast, Crashing.
It's such a weird place for me to promote myself. But
now that I've got you with this third revelation,
if you want to hear the rest,
private,
and then it's the meme of me sniffing my own butt. But on the set of How We Roll in our kitchen, there was a lobster. I didn't ask for it, but I can't see a lobster without. It's my little wink from the universe.
Saw a lobster tail today on the beach.
No shit.
I've never seen one on the beach before. Today,
Lobster.
yeah.
Get in the fucking house.
And I was like, "What? Why am I? That's weird." I pointed out to my friend. I was like, "I've never seen a lobster."
Wow.
The tail was like, "Yeah, okay, keep going."
Lobsters. So the reason lobsters, we know how to talk, is if, again, this isn't, what I said is completely true. There's no journey. There's no distance to go. When this dies, the knowing just goes into itself, and there's no, what I said when I was like, there's no gap. Meaning it's not like you're here, you're James, darkness, our biggest fear, darkness, nothingness. And then whoosh, light. There was no gap. It just goes here. We're smearing the paint. The paint is there the whole time. It's gentle and there's no gap. You go in and that is infinite. But the image that my brain felt or experienced was that of being a lobster laying on its back, a cooked lobster that's been cut open. I guess that's not good, but I'm from New England, so this is what came up. And something like a hand, like God's hand, grabbing you by the tail and just pulling the meat of the lobster out in one. So everything, the claws and everything just come out in one, because this is the shell. And it was this gentle, but also the most vigorous, we're going to cut you open and rip you out. But it was like, fucking thank you. It's changed my relationship to death in a huge way, in that I told you I was having a horrible day yesterday. Just I woke up and the needle was on the wrong part of the record. Like it wasn't even on the music part. It was just playing scratches. And I turned it around, but I was having a bad, why did I start saying that? I was having a bad day.
Your relationship with death, maybe?
Yes. And I meditated. Thank you. See, you're a good host. I meditated, and my mantra, and this might sound insane, was I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. And when the sting of death, when the no is lessened, I'm not saying I have it a little bit. Don't be insane. But I have it a little bit. But it's been gracefully reduced.
Put in a place, yeah.
Put in a place. There it is. I can go, oh, there's Pete's fear of death. But it doesn't rule my life anymore. And the mantra, when the sting is taken away and when you really feel like you've had the experience of it and you saw the gentleness of it and you saw the no pathness of it, you saw the home returnness of it and the joy of it and the relief of it. And I couldn't even tell you about what it's like being on the other side with the big lights. It's like a khaki sandstorm made out of fucking everything. When you realize that all of Pete's problems are because Pete thinks he's alive. Like I had some issues. I get really stressed out about podcast sponsors and they'll be like, we did an air check and we didn't hear the ad, and can you do a no cost make good? And I see red because my mother loved me so much. And I'm like, you should fucking give me money for nothing. You should just say, thank you for reading the copy wrong on the wrong week. Here's double the money. Like that's my truest voice. Like you have my email. You should be kissing my ass. The only reason you should email me is to say, Pete, we made a mistake. Here's 7 times your rate and flight to Miami or whatever you want.
Yeah.
So when they criticize me, I can't handle it. So I'm dealing with that stress and criticize me. When they rightfully say, hey, we just gave you a good amount of money to read this and you didn't read it. Like, and you read it wrong.
Don't give me notes. That's not notes. It was a job. There was a contract.
Buddy, that's the dark side of confidence, is you start to believe your own shit. So anyway, when you realize all of that is in the life of Pete, and you just go like, it started by going like, Pete could die right now. And I know that's everybody's worst fear, but like, you could have an aneurysm and it's over. Or Val and I always joke, plane engine just smashes and kills us. Memento mori, you could die. What are you doing? You don't even, they just want to run a no cost make good. Like, that costs you nothing. You're creating all of this suffering. So the way that came out is, I'm dead. It's Buddhism. It's this glass is already broken.
Yeah,
it's
negative
beautiful
visualization. Yeah, the beauty of
dead.
Seeing the end in the beginning.
Seeing the end in the beginning. So why do we need to have a near-death experience, or to beat cancer, to skip down the street and kiss babies and pet dogs? Like, you're dead. James, you're dead. What are you doing? I'm saying this to me. You seem to be
the
doing
thing
great.
that I'm not doing enough of. Well, the thing that I'm not doing enough of is questioning the hell out of everything that I am doing, that I'm seeing, that I'm thinking, that I'm scheming towards, that I'm motivated around. It's the thing that it's the teacher that I study with each morning that we've chatted about. This teacher, Swami Parthasarathi, and us, you, me, Val, Cheney, our kids, we should go to the ashram in India that we study with. It's just so beautiful, but it also it comes to mind because one of the things that he says so often around this is just that the number one thing you can do spiritually, philosophically, methodically, just for your own success in your own career, just secularly, it doesn't matter. The number one thing you can do is question everything. I mean, every great creator questioned. Steve Jobs, you questioned, should I stay in Massachusetts? Everyone, you see it. This is not a revelation.
There's a great Jake Johansson joke where he goes, I'm from Iowa. I lived there until I realized we were free to go. And I was like, that is
right.
That's brilliant. And it's not just about geographic stuff. It's like realizing you were free to
question
anything.
Yeah.
Free to anything. I watched this documentary recently. It's really on my mind. And this guy's telling his dad that he did ayahuasca. And his dad was like, you're lucky you didn't piss your pants in front of everybody. You can piss your pants in front of everybody. This is a great Ram Dass thing. It always moves me so much. He's like a kid outside, meaning he's had this like spiritual growth, whatever you want to call it. He's outside bouncing the ball. The sun's going down. And we're inside going, I can't come out. Mother says it's too late to play. His first mushroom trip, he shoveled his parents' walkway at 4 a.m.
Right.
And they opened the door and their window. They're like, what are you doing? You're out of your mind. And he said, I knew you shouldn't shovel snow at 4 a.m, but I also knew, right on, shovel snow.
Yeah. And his parents, I remember him saying something like his dad saying something, you can't do that right now.
Yeah.
And then his mom saying, well, yes, you can if you want to.
Right.
And it was like this, one of the first experience of this permission of you can.
What that is, we're all waiting for permission that you have to give yourself. And a lot of times this is translated, I'm going to get a parrot on my shoulder.
That was my big takeaway from
mohawk.
ayahuasca was I don't need permission.
You don't need
that I have permission.
You have permission. Even better. Trust yourself.
Right.
You have permission. I started to say, like, that doesn't mean we all have to have face tattoos and try heroin. You know what I mean? Like, too often, like, extreme freedom is interpreted to just like, well, fuck everything. I'm going to eat pizza 3 meals a day. That's not what we're talking about. You can greenlight so many more interesting things than just the model of rebellion that our culture has sold you, or the model of freedom that our culture has sold you, which is a bigger car, bigger boat, harder penis.
Yeah. I mean, finding out the truth that's the ultimate rebellion.
Yeah, absolutely. It would give me joy to close on all of this, Rupert Spira, and all of these beautiful things, to remind people like us that grew up in the Jesus tradition that this maybe sounds like, oh, okay, all right, smoking toad venom.
Right.
Like it just sounds pretty nuts.
It sounds like a huge leap that people in California do that
That's right.
that you can't do in Tulsa.
Exactly. But it's right there in black and white, or red if you had one of those Bibles. That I told you this when you did my podcast. This
was my last question. Yes, This is what I wanted to end on.
That's what we're going to end on.
Yes.
Well, you got to end on the JC.
Yeah.
So the Sermon on the Mount is actually, I love Bible trivia. It wasn't given in one go. The Sermon on the Mount, what's called the Sermon on the Mount, is most likely a collection of all of Jesus's kind of teachings. And I could be wrong about this. I'm off social media, so go ahead and tweet me if I'm wrong about it. I'll never see it because we're all dead already. But I'm pretty sure it's on all four Gospels, meaning the prodigal son, I do know this, is the least disputed teaching, authentic teaching of Jesus, meaning the scholars of the scrolls that look like terrible placemats that are falling apart. Scholars agree that Jesus told the story of the prodigal son. And it's all there. Meaning this whole like heaven and hell, you either say fuck and you're bad, or you say freck and you're good. All of that stuff is complete, or even that you follow the rules and you're good, and you break the rules and you're bad.
Performance principle,
the performance principle, that's right, which Paul calls the law. We're not saved by the law. We're not saved by doing it right. We're saved by doing it wrong. That's Richard Rohr. We don't come to God by doing it right. We come to God or truth, if you don't like the God word, by doing it wrong. We fall upward. And there it is in the prodigal son. There's the good son who stays in his father's kingdom. So it's a kingdom and a benevolent father. He has two sons. One of them stays and works with his father. He's the performance principle. He's I don't want to call him a brown noser, but he's sort of like, I'll stay here, Papa. And he does what he was expected of him. The other son, the prodigal son, leaves and wastes his inheritance, this field of knowing, this unbelievable precious jewel, wastes it on prostitutes, on drinking, on eating. And he's a Jewish man, and he ends up working with the pigs, which of course is like a fate worse than death. This is an unclean animal. He's lowered himself as low as he can go. So he decides he's almost dead. I'm going to go back and beg my father to at least let me be a servant in his kingdom. And when he comes back, the father slaughters the fattened calf. This is like, let's open the good champagne because my son has returned. And what he says to the son, which is unbelievable, and if you can take it in your heart, as Richard would say, it's enough to convert you. The father who represents God says to the son, who's us, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. Meaning, you didn't leave the kingdom and squander your inheritance. God wasn't here, and you went over here, and God wasn't there. You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. You're the one that turns and comes in and recognizes that you're already a beloved child of God, that this is a line from my book, there's nothing you could do that would increase or decrease the infinite love of God. There's only things you can do that increase or decrease your awareness of that love. But my whole life, I thought God was this mean, basically an alcoholic dad, waiting to kick me in a furnace for looking at a hustler. That's what we do. We turn it into like a sport game, Like my score was too low, so he's going to kill me. He's going to torture me. That's like war, and that's what we do. And it's a bad model.
It's a great way to police an empire without,
Exactly.
roaming policemen. Just to put that type of political message out there.
It's a tricky thing to tell people that they're already there.
Right. That is gorgeous. I think it's anyone listening to this, in terms of just like talking about the Richard Sparrow, the listening or the reading,
Rupert
Sparrow and Richard Rohr, with this type of subject matter, there is the listening and there's the reading, and then there's in Sanskrit, there's Shravana and Manana, there's the listening, and then there's the reflection. And the reflection is the richness. hearing this for the first time, if you find this stuff interesting, please listen to parts of this or the whole thing over again, because I think it's something that is so rarely talked about. I've talked about Vedanta in first episode, a few with my teacher, Joseph Emmett, or episodes, but it is so rare to find someone that has come from a field that discusses none of this, but has been, like leaving Massachusetts, has found a repulsion away from not talking about this, not thinking about reality. Like, how can you have a conversation over and over and over with someone that you consider close, and you're not talking about this kind of stuff once you start to get a whiff of it. Once you get that, like in surfing, you catch that first wave. Yeah. If this conversation is someone's first wave, then you will not be able to shake it. And listening to this again, listening to
that said, you have
Rupert Spira,
it's verily
reading it, reflecting,
yeah.
But listening to even that last part, the prodigal son being, as you put it before, it's Jesus that's his closer. Yeah, that's his best material.
He probably said it hundreds of times in his life, I'm sure.
Right, and it's that is the good
right
news.
There.
And you said that is the good news. I used to think the good news, the New Testament is the good news. The Bible is the good news. 27 books of the New Testament, that's the good news. I got to read every single one. And it was a great clarification. It was a brilliant, beautiful clarification in our conversations where you were just like, that is the good news.
Right. The good news is, Richard Rohr says, the story should be called The Forgiving Father, because it's not really about the son. It's like there's nothing you could do.
Wow.
It's also in the Psalms, I believe, it's like, where can I make my bed that you are not there? I go to the depths and you are there. I go to the heavens and you are there. And that to me is very Vedantic. It's like, who is going anywhere?
Right.
And that's, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. And when we get into like my divorce, my wife leaves me, where was God? God was in me. My suffering was God's suffering. God wasn't watching and not helping like a genie in Aladdin. God was in my body. Every ounce of my depression was experienced by the only thing that experiences anything. So God isn't dropping the ball on pick your, as intimately involved in everything, always with me, in everything.
You get there by doing it wrong. And the falling upward. And
I mean, that's what we tried to show in Crashing with my divorce. And there's even an element of that in the new show. These things that we don't want to happen lead us to the life that we were meant to live. And that's what Joseph Campbell said. He says, the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to go.
Right.
And you won't go. If what you're doing is working, why would you change? It needs to stop working. Your wife needs to leave you, Pete. Mm-hmm. What a mitzvah. Or you need to get laid off, or you need this, or this, or this, or this. I mean, that's falling upward.
So beautiful. Pete, you mentioned you're not on social media, but where can people find out more about you?
Please do still. I mean, it sounds hoity-toity to be like, I'm not on it for my own sake, but my accounts are still active, meaning I'll post and ghost sometimes just because it's not healthy for me to get sucked in.
Right.
But you can follow me
same way.
at Pete Holmes.
I give him access to my assistant, and then I do not.
That's what I do as well. But she's posting clips from the podcast all the time and shows and everything. So it's a pretty benign follow, meaning you'll see a post from me once or twice a month. But if you want to know when things are premiering and stuff, please do follow me on Instagram at Pete Holmes. And please do watch How We Roll. Yeah. It's funny. I do hope people enjoy it. And I've never enjoyed making something more. The people that I worked with and the community of making a play every week, basically doing like these little shows on a set with a little audience and stuff, was just so fun. So I hope.
Is that your first time to do a live audience show?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. It was really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Really well, Pete, thank you so much. Next part 2, we'll get to the diarrhea joke. You've got.
It's the closer of Dirty Clean.
Yeah.
You can watch it now. Don't wait.
All right. Okay.
Just like diarrhea. It doesn't wait.
Well, thank you, Pete. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.